Let's talk about the events of my second Task Force X movie, Task Force X: Last Ride, in my DC Cinematic Universe. After the events of Justice League Public Enemies, Amanda Waller has become the President of the United States. And she brings back the survivors of the first movie with new members for Task Force X to hunt down the Amazo android. After the events of the first Justice League movie, Professor Anthony Ivo was arrested and thrown into prison, where shortly after, he started working for Amanda Waller. Specifically, she wanted him to build an android strong enough to kill the Justice League if it came to it. And Amazo is that android. But calling him an android would be doing him a disservice. This is a fully artificial being. Nanites making up artificial cells. This thing is damn near biological. And it was designed by Ivo to do one thing: absorb the blood of other beings to make itself stronger. If it gets a sample of metahuman or superpowered alien DNA, it could mutate its own artificial DNA to replicate those abilities. But shortly after Amazo's development, he escaped. He went wild. He's fucking evil. So for this movie, it's going to feel like Task Force X hunting down a serial killer. This guy starts off with no powers and slowly has to go through tracking down metahumans it think would be useful to kill and absorb their abilities to increase his own, with his end goal being absorbing and killing Superman. This Task Force X roster is specifically made up by beings who receive their powers from an external source, or metahumans who have a critical weakness, so that when Amazo killed and absorbed one of them, he would also absorb their weakness. During this movie, we will mostly be following Harley Quinn as she uses her psychiatric expertise to get into the mind of this monster. I'm imagining Silence of the Lambs, but with superhero fight scenes mixed in. And by the end of this movie, when they finally confront Amazo and they have their big final fight, most of Task Force X dies. He gets a couple of them throughout the movie, but during this final one, he cleans house. As everything is going badly and he has absorbed Heatwave's metahuman abilities, killing Heatwave, and he begins setting himself on fire, attacking the task force. They realize there's only one thing to do: hit him all at once. Poison Ivy summons giant vines out of the ground to wrap around and crush Amazo. Killer Frost, now that this man has become a living heat generator, grabs onto him and begins draining the heat out of his body, instantly freezing him, making him very brittle. And then Bane dials his venom injectors up to 11 and smashes this man's spine over his knee. But even that isn't enough to fully get him. What finishes this job is Livewire turns into her electrical form. Now you see, the whole deal, Livewire can turn into living electricity, but if she does, the specially designed EMP bomb in her neck to kill her will go off. She leaps into Amazo, turns herself into living energy, and that bomb goes off, taking out Amazo's systems, letting these physical attacks by the rest of Task Force X kill the android. At the end of this movie, only Ivy, Harley Quinn, Killer Frost, and Bane have survived. All of the rest of Task Force X are dead. And because of the sacrifice, because of what they did here today, Amanda Waller offers all 4 survivors a complete pardon and instant release. Bane goes free out into the world. Killer Frost goes free out into the world. And Harley and Ivy are let out free to live their lives together. And now realizing that they are actually free and together and a future is possible for them, Poison Ivy gets down on one knee and proposes to Harley Quinn. And Harley Quinn, of course, says yes. And those are the events of my second Task Force X movie in my DC Cinematic Universe.